So, as an animator, I have to ask if you experience this too. Is there ever a moment when you're creating something where you are having like an existential apocalypse because you're spending like 10 million years on a work of art that's only going to last like 10 seconds, like a video clip?
That is literally what's happening right now.
So how do you handle that? Like, do you have any techniques that you'd like to share that kind of bring about like existential satisfaction, which like remind you that it's like worth it to embark on this?
You know, honestly, it's the longer I spend on a piece, the more I'm learning different techniques that add to the piece. So, for example, I'm working on a collab with Chris Dyer right now. And so the first version I created last year was sort of combining multiple like animation styles. And I was really uncomfortable with what I produced, just because I didn't feel like it really did justice to, highlighting his work, highlighting his side of the artwork. And so instead, I decided to toss it and start fresh. And because of that, I've picked up a lot of other techniques that's actually contributing to the piece as it stands now. So Wow. It's a much stronger piece. And I've worked on it for almost a year. I've worked on this particular collab for almost a year. And blessings to Chris for his patience with me. But this one was really a challenge because I had to learn things I did not know previously. So yes, that's how I get through these long periods where I'm like, this is only 12 seconds. This is only 12 seconds. I was spending, upwards of a year on this piece. And that is why, because in the process of it, I am learning a lot more than I ever known before.
Yeah. And I feel something that kind of rewards us at the end of that is having the actual total watch time, like the amount of time that people spend watching this clip, like across all other people, eventually it gets to be larger than the amount of time that you've spent on. There's obviously no like measurable way to count that, but like when it's in front of, millions of eyes and they're all mesmerized by this video clip, watching it over and over again, then it I feel that really justifies the process of it and, brings about a feeling of like, this is why it was worth it. This is why I did this.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's been a while since I've done a visionary art podcast, and today I am super, super excited to have the legendary and incredibly handsome Burt Vera Cruz on the show. Burt, you are a digital sorcerer conjuring extracts in visuals of the psychedelic geometry realms, and it's brilliant. I'm super inspired by your work, and I'm really just curious, like, what inspires you more than anything else to create these visuals?
I think it's a sort of a combination of things. For me, it is knowing that sacred geometry is real, and that it's very visible, that it's within our eyesight, closed or eyes open.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of inspiration from nature. I get a lot of inspiration from just plant, patterns and sort of the inherent sacred geometry in them. I know, yes, of course, psychedelics is a huge influence and inspiration. And having, when you're in those states, you're able to see more than you would normally see. And so it's really like peering into a different dimension. And I think for me as an artist, it's lovely just to be able to, take those ideas and take some of those visuals back into our regular realm. So sort of as pieces of evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Do you ever like model things off of what you see in nature directly, like using any like realistic references in order to create what you do? Because like I get this really familiar feeling anytime that I see your animations. It feels like something that that I've seen before, but from like an intangible experience. So I'm wondering, like, you know, how much you draw from like real life into creating these super psychedelic animations.
You know what? I haven't really tried modeling sort of 3D yet, but I think a lot of the mandalas that you do see from me are based on, you know, sacred geometry that you'll see with plants, right? You see the Fibonacci spirals, you'll see some of the mathematical formations replicated digitally. But as far as modeling, like I have a long way to go there. Like actual real modeling, I think I just begun like late last year. So
yeah, because as far as I can tell, I went to school for 3D animation back in like 2011. So the skills that were like kind of outdated, but what I'm seeing from you looks like super smooth and professional.
Oh, thank you.
Do you use Cinema 4D to create these animations?
No, I'm on Blender 3D.
Oh, nice. Right on.
Yeah.
Are you using like animated UV maps in order to like get those like undulating patterns that are like cascading across this 3-dimensional geometry?
Yeah, pretty much. Those are all just displacement maps. Yeah. I feel like that's like, I think most people, if you're doing 3D, you would have figured that out already, that I was just using displacement maps.
Yeah.
But of course, it's like, it's all about your signature, right? And so like, everyone can have their own kind of displacement map. It's up to you and how creative you want to get with it.
Yeah. How long have you been using Blender? Because I learned Maya in school, and Maya is incredibly inaccessible to like normal people like me. So Blender is like definitely the next best thing I've been looking at. What was the learning curve like to like just start in Blender? I assume you learned from like YouTube tutorials.
Yes, absolutely. YouTube tutorials, and I started, gosh, when was that? Maybe like September last year, October. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Pretty recent.
So about a year. 3D software is like flying a spaceship.
It is. It really is. I was doing this, and by the way, I'm doing tutorials all the time. So my learning curve is skewed. You might think that I'm doing everything by myself, but I'm actually drawing on just a plethora of different techniques and tips.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what the artist does, right? You sort of take techniques and everything from different sources, and you put your signature on it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. Normal people don't realize that like artists are just taking things they learned from elsewhere and just like putting them into orders and,
right.
and arrangements. So like to us, I think that's probably why artists get like imposter syndrome frequently, because like what we're creating is like we saw ourselves doing this from the very beginning of the project, moving forward like into other levels, and we see that development. And like something that I end up talking about a lot with my artist friends is how we see a completely different artwork than other people do. Like, because we see all the layers of development that it went through. Right. So what would you recommend to people who like want to learn Blender, who want to download this amazing free software and just like get started right away? Like, should they come into it with an idea or an intention already, or do you think just like follow tutorials that seem interesting?
I think both. I was so driven to get to the point where I can express what I wanted to express, or to manifest what I was seeing. And so having that hunger will get you through 14 hours of Blender tutorials by Andrew Price. So, or there's even a sort of like a live cast from Arendelle, who's just the masterful Blender guru. 14 hours. I got through 2.5, and I was just like, I'm done. I think I got what I needed here. So wow. Yeah, you really do have to know your fundamentals. You do have to have a strong foundation for the platforms that you're using, the apps you're using, and that way you can actually manipulate your creations the way you want to, right? So yeah, I've got like 2 folders in YouTube are just like saved list of tutorials, like After Effects, Blender. I draw from them all the time if I don't remember something. There's a few things that I've learned on the way that I'm like, okay, this is my unique take on this particular approach, right? That no one else is doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's really inspiring to know that like we have access to this like enormous library of information where we can learn just about anything and everything. Like never in human history have we had such an expansive library of information at our fingertips. And when we go into it with intention, it's powerful. There's a lot that we can accomplish within that space.
Right, totally.
So I'm curious, like, do you start out with like an idea in mind that you want to create, or do you kind of just experiment with things and then like see where it goes, or is it a little of both?
I would say that I would start with an idea, right? One of the most essential tools in my toolbox is my notebook, right? And my sketch notebook. So I have all of my ideas written down here, just because I might have one idea, but I might have like 5 variations of it. And instead of trying to remember it, just write it down and be able to play with ideas on paper first, because it's such a huge investment to do it like digitally, right? Even if I'm fast on, for example, I'm pretty fast on Illustrator, I'm pretty fast on After Effects, but still I don't want to spend that time like trying to figure things out if I don't have like a general direction.
Yeah. Have you been using After Effects and like other Adobe software longer than you've been using Blender?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, After Effects I started in 2015, and I started with a Skillshare class by a guy named Rich Armstrong, and that was one that just transformed how I felt about animation, and decided that, hey, I'm going to do this for real. I didn't think I was going to, amass such a huge following. I thought, I had like a few hundred people following me, and most of them were friends. So I thought they probably thought I was weird for putting these animations up. But before that, I've been a graphic designer for 20 years. I've been working in nonprofit and union world, doing like political graphics and flyers and things like that. So I've known like print design for since 1999. Jeez.
Oh wow! Wow. So you've been in the game for like quite a while. Then what kind of interested you to like pursue that career, or that practice of creation in a professional setting?
Really. So a little backstory. I'm a sociology and Asian American studies major. So I really wanted to focus on social and economic justice. And I felt like doing design work was a really good way for me to contribute to anything I was working on. Just because I'd rather be doing that than I was actually trying to teach in 2002, 2003. And teaching is not for me. So I decided to, handling a class of 30 kids, it's just not, it's just not me. Yeah. And so, I really wanted to do something that I really loved. And for me, I love designing stuff. I should actually share some of my design work on Instagram too, just because I think it's just as strong, but it's just very square. Yeah. It's a very square-sided me. You know?
And I think the visuals that you're producing are really connecting with a lot of people, because they feel so familiar to something that's impossible to describe, that can like really only be elaborated on when it's done in a visual arts and in the exact format that you're using to share these images, because a lot of the time when we have like a really profound experience, like maybe it's a psychedelic experience, maybe it's just having our eyes closed late at night and seeing these like patterns unfolding, there's something really beautiful and amazing about those experiences and those visions that arrive to us. And I think that you really articulate them in a visual way that's incredibly clean and is super juicy and entertaining to look at. I was rolling through your Instagram last night just looking at all of your work, and was I'm really inspired and amazed at like the quality of material that you are putting out there into the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really a blessing to be able to share this with everyone.
Yeah, so you talked a bit about social media. Congrats on hitting 50K recently. That's huge.
Wow. Yeah. I can't believe it. I really can't. It's amazing. It really is amazing to have that kind of support from people. So, yeah.
Was there anything, was there any like click moment where you realized you were doing something that was like really helping you grow? I asked just to, give any insights to other artists who are creating stuff and maybe like don't understand like how the platform works. I know I struggle with that all the time. So like, is there a secret?
There's a few things. Yeah. I had to learn how to sort of gamify my account. Think of it as a game. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So for me, there was one post I created, and I forget what date that was. Do you mind if I look real quick?
Oh yeah, go for it.
It really made a huge difference. It was when I knew that, okay, no, this is something serious. I should really continue. It's deep down in the feed. I don't know if I should even try.
What does the artwork look like?
It's a 2D pattern, and it's one of the first ones that has that optical effect, right, where something is sequenced and sort of like coming at you, and it kind of looks like closed eye visuals, or what happens when you rub your eyes too hard, some people say. But yeah, it was one of the first times I used that type of sequencing, and it was also the first time any post of mine got over 15,000 views. And it felt like, oh my God, I'm going viral. I was like, oh crap.
Oh, and that's
I made it.
Yeah, and that's the most exhilarating feeling, to just be getting that much attention on our artwork, something that we put so much love and effort into creating, that's really close to what we want to be generating and putting out there. So that must have been like quite a feeling when that happened and it kind of like clicked for you.
Yeah. So my advice for a lot of artists who are trying to grow is, first of all, like, just keep putting out, some dope shit, like stuff that you want to see. You know what I mean? And one is just knowing the game, like your hashtags, collaborating, things like that. A couple big moments for me was when I got reposted on a few big accounts. One of them was If You High and Fractalgasm. Just getting posted on these accounts that have like six digit following, like that really helps out a lot. And so, that only happens if, you're making the connections and sort of like just putting out the work that you love to see.
Yeah. And creating something that really resonates with a lot of other people. Because I feel there's this, what's the word, compromise, I guess, that we're kind of making, because like at the end of the day, in order to actually sustain a business from our artwork, we're creating art for the market, and we're creating things that are from our own visions, but that are also serve some kind of purpose or function within the world at large. And so there's kind of this mix, but I also find that like some of the things I've done that have been like really close to me personally, like I did a video last year around this time called What Happens When You Buy Art from an Independent Artist, and on Facebook it got around like 25,000 views. And I knew it would, because it was like comedy content that like pretty much every artist can relate to. And I was excited about it. And I knew that me being excited about it like made a huge difference in terms of like how it would be received, because like the entire time I was making this, I felt great about it. Like I knew I had that like intuitive knowing. Like when I go on psychedelic journeys by myself, sometimes I get ideas for content that appear. Which is weird, and like a super 2021 thing to like be in the forest, like high on mushrooms and seeing these amazing visuals, and I'm just like, this would make a great social media post. I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but it's definitely something I experience.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you said that, just because I don't want to make people feel like, oh, your shit is not dope enough, or it's just not. It's a challenge, right? There's stuff that really sells, that really resonate, and there's stuff that you might think is kind of cool and vanguard, but it doesn't. No one understands it, and it's sort of that line you have to balance, where it's like let's push the limit, let's just push the the limits of understanding for right now, but at the same time make it appealing for people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like on the subject of like the business side of art, you mentioned recently that you've been working in that space. I'm curious what you can tell us about like the business side of your artwork and your original visions, and kind of bringing that to market and turning it into a system where they are distributed to as many people as possible that also is still fair to you.
It's funny. This is the moment in the interview where I was actually going to flip it and ask you about the business side of art. I am but a fledgling in this area, so I really want to know more. I'm barely starting, and maybe I should sort of clear it up for people who might follow me or want art from me and everything. And it's just that I really thought of this as a hobby. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to sell things, and I don't want to. I feel like it doesn't do justice to exchange this for something of monetary value, right? A lot of these things I feel like are really close to me, are deep expressions of ideas, and so there's a bit of self-sabotage there. I just haven't launched anything in a major way. Like, I have my NFTs on Foundation. I've got a few of my old loops on Gumroad. And then beyond that, I've just got a bunch of notes about getting on Patreon and YouTube and, Art Grab. And I just have notes. I have intentions, but as far as like really, really making money, it's just not there at all. And, so I really want to, for me right now, I'm just trying to figure out like, how do I make that transition, and what are artists like yourself, like, what are you doing to stay afloat? And to really make this something lucrative for yourself, and to get the recognition you deserve in a real tangible way.
Yeah, and the return on investment and time, because you said that you think of this as like a hobby that you do for fun. I think that's why you're creating such incredible and amazing animations. And I think, as long as you continue seeing this as something that's really fun, then like you're only going to be continuing to make better and better and more satisfying and dreamy animations. Because there's really not a right answer. Like, we can sell VJ clips, we can sell canvases. Like this canvas behind me, after this podcast, someone is coming over to make the second payment on it and pick it up and take it home, which is why I have it out and displayed. I was taking some photos of it. For me, doing like live shows has been an enormous source of income as of recently, especially since I've been printing on canvas. I think I've sold a canvas at every show that I've been to in the last like 2 months, I think, which is astonishing, because I've never experienced that kind of like actual sale aspect.
Right.
So I think it really depends on like, what do you feel good about selling en masse, and like, and you can sustainably reproduce again and again, that like, people are going to have the demand for it. Because I think the NFTs are absolutely huge, and like this space is like only just beginning. It's still really in its infancy. Gary Vee has a lot of really good things to say about NFTs. That's just really insightful advice that I think is really essential for artists to be paying attention to as well, because it's really digital media assets that are being redistributed and then sold on the secondary market. And it's the kind of the same idea as the classical art market, which is, except that we can get royalties anytime that the artwork sells again, which is it's thrilling. It
really is, yeah.
Do you take like commissions and like custom video project work, Or, do you really just keep this as like a hobby? Like if a musician were to approach you and say like, hey, I want you to do a music video that looks like this and this and this, and I will I can afford to pay you this. Then like, do you have like a system for how to handle that?
Yeah, so I go on a very, rarely do I do commissions. It's sort of a case by case basis, but a lot of it has to do with my capacity and what the scope of the project involves, right? So if you're looking at like getting me to do 10 loops, in 20 days and all that, that's just not going to be sustainable, or that's just beyond my capacity. But there's times where I'll work with musicians, and honestly, if I love your music, I'm just gonna do it. I'll just call it a collab. You know what I mean? Because you're bringing as much value to the visual as much as I am. And I think you've seen that in my work. You'll see like there's a number of artists that I work, or musicians that I work with consistently. For example, Little Ambient Machine. I love his music. You'll hear his tracks on almost all of my early pieces. Another guy named he goes by Sonolumin. I work with him all the time. But there's other times when people have commissioned me. Sylph, I don't know if you saw a piece with Sylph. And so she commissioned me for the project, but I was like, you know what? Let's turn this around and make this an NFT, so that instead of you just paying me, like we're actually making, we're bringing value to the project together that benefits to both of us. And so that's one case where, commission turned into an NFT. But other than that, like I stopped taking commissions, and that's because I didn't want to bring that same kind of client an artist exchange, like that kind of exchange I was having with my freelance graphic design work. I didn't want to bring that into my art space. It just didn't feel right. Something about it just didn't feel like, whatever I'm creating is what I generally want to create. I don't want to create something for someone else based on their own parameters and stuff. And it sounds crazy and selfish, but at the same time, no, I want you to see the genuine side of me. I want you to see like what I want to create, what is truly an art piece for me, not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to accept commissions with that in mind. For example, I think if I were to commission, let's say if I could afford Alex Gray, if I could afford to have Alex Gray do a commission piece for me, I wouldn't tell him to okay, can you draw me a squirrel crawling up a tree? That's not what he does. I mean, I'm sure he can do one hell of a job. It'll be a transparent squirrel with a tree, has energy coming from it and everything. But it would be his style, right? Hey. Next challenge. All right.
Alex Gray, I know you're listening. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it, because we should be, if there's too much influence that is not necessarily ours going into something that we're working on, it kind of waters down, I guess, the love that we have for the project. And I think that even in just really subtle ways, that love really shows up in just being creating really stunning imagery. And I think that that's a good way to go about it. And it sounds like you're plenty busy with graphic design and your freelance business to not really need to take on commissions to keep the wheels turning where you're at. Is that right?
Yeah, just about right. But again, I do have a full-time job.
Yeah.
and it pays really well, but I'm also very responsible. I have a significant role on the team. And so I need to have work-life balance. And so I try not to take so many commissions on.
Yeah. And I think that it's really important, to have that sense of balance. And being, knowing that we are doing things that we want to be doing on a regular basis, and that we're happy, because when we're in a state of awe and wonder and joy and relaxation, that's where the best art really comes from. in my opinion and experience, because I have been turning my art into a business for the last 3 years. I left my full-time job before I was really ready, and I was completely unprepared. I'm not going to recommend anybody do that. Unless someone is like really, really confident that like they can be making the same amount or more from independently, because like running and owning and operating a business is a there's a lot to it. There's a lot of YouTube videos on like how to make it work, but everybody's situation is so different, and especially with art, everybody's circumstances and skills are very different. So I think it really comes down to like, what makes us happy, and what makes us what kind of results do we want to see from our audience that are going to create happiness for us as well. I think finding that little cross section, that bridging that gap, is where like real success starts to come in, because it seems like Alex Grey is doing that, creating his own original artworks, and creating Entheon and all these other like amazing visionary art temples, which you mentioned you went to Cosm recently.
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
Invited.
What can you tell us about that experience? I've been to Cosm a couple of times back when I lived in New England. I'm really curious to hear what's going on there now.
That was my first trip to Cosm ever, and so I went on Saturday, and it was just beautiful. I mean, for me, and for that being my first time, it was just like mind blowing. The first thing I did was actually so they have a trail on their property. Who else has a trail? Like a real like lengthy trail on their property. So that's how big it is. But it's the Wisdom Trail, and I walked down the Wisdom Trail, and I was completely inspired. Just not only with the sculptures, but just being in that space. It was so peaceful, so quiet, and just there's a point at the trail where you walk out and you kind of like get to an opening, and you're looking down at like sort of the valley, upstate New York, I guess, and it was beautiful. So. One of the things I came across was a Chris Dyer piece. It's near the, I think is it some kind of gazebo, or like it's just this white gazebo that you discover on the lawn. I had no idea it was there. I just took the trail. So everything I just discovered for the first time. And I was just like, wow. And so from there, we took the tour into Entheon. Again, that was my first time ever seeing any of these pieces in real life. The grand scale of it all is just mind-blowing. Allison's pieces, oh my gosh. I feel like she has a whole like exhibit with like her alphabet everywhere. Literally everywhere. It's the wallpaper, it's the floor, it's all on the paintings. It's just like, it's everywhere. And it's just like, yes, I get it. I totally get it. We're made of language, as Terrence McKenna says. And so like, that was just amazing. And just seeing all of like Alex Grey's pieces in real scale, and just looking at every stroke, you gotta imagine like this, like what if you imagine, you go back to the points in your life when you were painting something, and what was going on through your head, and how that transferred onto the canvas or whatever you were drawing on. And so I feel like I'm witnessing Alex Grey, like, and Allison Grey, sort of cemented, frozen in time at a moment, where their thoughts and what they're channeling is manifested onto the canvas. It's a magical feeling to think about that, to think about an artist in that moment.
Yeah, and especially like on such a grand scale like that, because I've been to Cosm a couple times, but what always struck me was seeing the Cosmic Christ in person, and just like how massive it's, like 9
Yes.
feet tall or something, like with this giant sculpture. Like you just walk into the space and this like enormous Christ figure with all these little detailed tiny paintings within this massive giant painting are just like looking back at you, and it's incredibly awe-inspiring to see that in person. You know, it's one thing to see the images of it online, but it's a whole different experience to be next to it, to be in the room with it and experiencing that.
Yes.
So, did you see Entheon?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I've only seen all of these pieces on a screen, on a computer, or in a book, never at full scale. So yeah, it's just mind blowing. It really is mind blowing to see the details that I've never seen before.
Yeah. Did you get to like walk through it, or is it still?
Oh yeah. We walked through it, all floors. Yes.
Can you tell us anything about it? Because I'm not sure I've seen any pictures of it from the inside, and it just from the idea that they're promoting with it is just mind expanding. I'm super excited to one day eventually walk through it and record an episode of the Visionary Art Podcast in there.
Right. Well, first of all, we couldn't take pictures.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So, good luck with that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they had you sign like an NDA or anything.
No, we signed something, but I definitely did not take any pictures. It was just like I actually came late to when everyone was gathering and someone was going over all the rules. I got there late, but I could just figure that, oh yeah, no one's pulling out their phones. So
yeah. And one of those moments where we're so like, just captivated in person that like we forget to take photographs. Those are always the best moment, when we're so in the moment that we don't take any photos at all.
Right. So I did not take any photos, and I definitely felt like I got to experience the pieces fully because I wasn't behind my phone. You know what I mean? And it was great because Allison and Alex were curating. They were talking about their pieces and the history and where they were at that time when they were creating it. And so it was just really beautiful to get their perspective on their pieces. And, which may or may not be different from whatever I interpreted, right?
Yeah. So what kind of inspiration did that spark in you from just being in that space and seeing these masters who ultimately like coined the term of visionary art? I'm curious, like what kind of personal impact that had on you?
It had tremendous impact on me. So one is that it just gives me an idea of like where all of us can take our art, and that we all have the potential to be seen on that scale. I don't think my intention is to be seen, but I would love to just do this. And I want to have the feeling that I'm retired right now, right? I don't want to wait until I'm 60 and I can barely move, or, you know what I'm saying? I want to be able to have that life right now where I can feel like, hey, I'm creating art and I'm supporting myself in the process. I'm supporting my family. And so for me, just seeing what they've been able to accomplish in the amount of time they've lived here on planet Earth, and to bring these type of communities together, these type of people together, it's just beautiful to see that, right? It's a realm where it goes beyond just the art. It goes into creating an intentional community, creating Earth, creating what's the word? Elysium, the new Elysium.
Sumerian.
No.
Mesopotamian?
No.
Ancient future?
No, it's ancient future. Yes.
Yeah.
So, so on that scale, as an artist, I feel like I've really I don't know. It just drives me to continue doing what I'm doing, right? And at the end of the day, Alex and I were talking, and we were talking about how like we're all trying to sort of look into through this window, this little portal. We all see something, and we're just trying to bring back, like, hey, this is what color was that thing you saw? Like, it was blue. It was red for me, right? Or like, what did they look like? And like, oh, well, they had this, they were kind of shadow figures. And like, what did they say? So I think we're all like, we're all sort of gathering like evidence of this other realm, and we just want to convey that to the world, that we're not alone, that this is that the universe binds us all together, that we are really and truly one, and that that we're not, exactly, we're not alone. Whether we consider ourselves to be a community as humans, or if we see ourselves as community with all of the earth and all of the cosmos, right?
Yeah. And we're all kind of like simultaneously connected to this like mystical imaginary realm that is like within all of us and is infinitely expansive for each and every one of us. We all have this little zone within there that we're all interacting with, and like sometimes they're familiar to things other people have seen or created. Sometimes they're like completely independent of anything anybody else has ever seen. And that's something that fascinates me a lot about art, is that like it's kind of it's like the mushroom tip of the psychedelic or mystical imagination that every single one of us is interacting with at all times. We're always sort of in this zone, formulating these ideas and these concepts, and like everything that we see in reality, like started out, that's man-made or human-made, was once a figment of someone's imagination. Like this vaporizer, which great vape, Aegis Geek vape, been using it for like 3 years. I should get a sponsor. At one point, it was a figment of imagination. Someone was like, I'm going to make this vape that is literally indestructible. And
cheers, brother. Cheers.
Yeah. And now it's like a real actual thing that has like changed my life in a big way, because I used to smoke cigarettes and now I don't. My lungs feel fantastic. But it started as something within the imagination. And as artists, we're kind of creating like just the visions themselves. Like there's the value that they have is simply the element in our imagination that kind of like captivated us to create it in the first place. Which is, it's always super cool to see, what appears in other people's minds, because like we're also different in so many different ways.
Right. I was actually looking at your pieces too, and I was inspired. I was like, I love how there's this one piece, by the way, that we're talking about minds. Which one is it? It's the one with the cat.
Strawberry Moonshine. It's like a nighttime scene.
Yes.
Overlooking mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my most recent one. That one is actually a collaboration now with one of my favorite synthwave artists. I literally just commissioned him yesterday for like some sound design up front for like an NFT version.
Nice.
I'm not going to say exactly who it is just yet, because it's like still in the works, but it's something that's going. The intention is to launch my company, my official LLC, and like his music literally inspired this artwork in so many ways. And I sent him like 20 DMs just being like, bro, I had this crazy emotional reaction to your music. I just need to tell you like what my experience was. And only like a month ago, he actually like responded. And we've been working together, and now we're creating some artwork together, which I'm really, really excited about. That piece is something really special to me, for sure.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I really feel what you're feeling. I really felt like what you were envisioning. I'm just like, I'm vibing with this. Yes,
I love that. Thank you so much.
Piece. I love the fact there's a story with it too, and everything, and just Yeah,
Ivester is a character that's / imaginary friend that's been in my mental space for quite a while. I'm really excited to start telling your stories. I want to hear about what can you tell us about your collaboration with Chris Dyer?
I don't know if I should say a lot about it. I kind of want to keep the surprise.
Okay.
But you know, I would just say as far as process, like it's just one I've been working on, and I was gonna use some of my recent Blender techniques, but I decided like no, let's learn real 3D. Let's learn it. Let's learn how to model. Let's learn how to like, you know, go through the challenge of actually knowing how to sculpt. You know, I don't sculpt. I do a lot of things almost procedural, or you know, I'll get things from other sources. But sculpting to me is like that's when you're like, okay, I've got to be a real artist.
Yeah.
I've got to know, not real, but I've got to know how to illustrate. And illustration is one of my weaknesses. You know, I know how to like, I know the techniques. You know, if you ask me to do like something that was real life or you know, sort of still life, I think I can do it. But when it comes to sculpting and knowing 3D and knowing how to use the tools to create that, that's something that's was really a challenge for me, and it's still a challenge. And so that's what I've been working on. If that's any clue.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to keep it a surprise. Yeah.
There's so much that goes into the process of just like learning how to do these things. And there's so much, so many little facets of like little fragments that people don't see or don't recognize like what went into it. And like illustration is really difficult for me as well. Do you use like a Wacom tablet to do your work?
No, I don't. I wish I did. This is my main tool. You know,
that's literally the best mouse on the planet, in my opinion.
It is. Yes, it really is. I got the MX Master 3, and I was just like, thank goodness work paid for this one. So
yeah. I just got a new computer like 3 months ago, and I was looking at new mice, but everything I read online was like the MX Master 3 is like literally the best mouse for design work on the planet. So I just kept it. It's still the best mouse that I've ever used.
Nice. What kind of computer did you get?
It's a custom build from a shop around here. Shout out to Christopher's Computers in Asheville, North Carolina. He worked with me like the entire way to make like a really specific setup. It has a Quadro K4200 video card. The processor is a Ryzen.
Okay, I'm drooling now.
Or something.
What?
I honestly don't know a lot about like the technical aspects. I just know that it has like 64 gigabytes of RAM, and it can handle enormous Photoshop files.
Bro. I'm working off a 2018 MacBook Pro. I wish I had half the firepower. Man.
I wish I had your skills in Blender to create the kinds of worlds and landscapes that you do.
Thank you. Yeah. If someone is watching this, please buy my NFT. I promise I will come back harder because I will use that NFT to buy a proper rig. And then I will start creating VR experiences.
And that NFT is going to be a timeless work of art. It's like investing in stock and creators. Yes. I just sold my first NFT last night. It's called the Merkaba Tribe Superhighway. Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes. The Merkaba Tribe Superhighway. It sold for 0.1 Ethereum. I'm super pumped. I actually don't know who bought it. I have a feeling who, but I'm not sure. But that's what's exciting about it, is that this artwork is going to be on the Ethereum blockchain forever. So for those of you who want to invest in a Burt Vera Cruz NFT, like, trust me, this space is only going to grow. It's only going to expand. If you don't put it on the secondary market right away, then like customers can put it on their wall and display it in high resolution. What actually? It's a good question. What resolution do you render your final artworks in?
Okay, so I think I'm using a 5:4 aspect ratio, and so I think the last one I created, gosh, I think I wanted to make the minimum 1920. So I forget what the other number was. But I'm trying to make it at least 1K. The problem is that Foundation only allows for 50 megabytes. And I'm using a high bit rate. I'm using anywhere between 30 to 40. Even for Instagram, I'm using 30 to 40 on my bit rate. And so that makes the files pretty large. But at the same time, like, well, I want you to see the work. I don't want to, I don't want artifacts, and I don't want to feel like it's an 8-bit experience. And so, like, I'm going to compromise on, length and size, but I'm going to give you as much quality in that size as possible, right? So some of the pieces are I think all of the pieces are 4x5, and then a minimum of 1080.
Right.
So it's like 1080 by 1350, and then another one's like 1920 something. I don't know.
Yeah, because it definitely shows in your work just the level of crispness that appears with it. And your artwork is always in really, really high resolution. When I see it on Instagram, it just looks perfectly crisp and super beautiful.
Thank you.
Which I feel like in a lot of cases stuff gets like compressed, but it might just be like our particular device that's doing that. It's kind of hard to really say for sure. But so when you render something through,
can I do a quick shout out about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To U1 Visuals. U1 Visuals has been really helpful for me. One is he shared with me his, like, how he actually compresses his files. And so that's something he does, right? So he actually maximizes on the bit rate. He goes 30 to 40. And I decided to do that. The other trick, and I don't mind sharing this with everyone, if you have something you want to post to your feed, post it through Creator Studio. You're going to maintain a lot more of the quality in your animation and your video than if you were to post it through your phone. So Creator Studio for Instagram and Facebook. Use that. And
is that on the desktop?
It's on the desktop.
Okay. Is that like only for creators who have like more than 10K followers?
I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised that I actually had access to Creator Studio. So it might be that. It might be where you have to have a number of people to follow you or that are following you, or it might just be attached to your account as long as you verify Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody talk about that before. That's really interesting that there is like a desktop version of Instagram. That's what it is. It's like literally a desktop PC version where you can share your artwork through there.
Well, there's two versions of desktop Instagram for desktop. There's the sort of, you can go through the URL and log in that way, but Creator Studio is sort of like the business side, or sort of like the creator side of Facebook. So I actually do Facebook marketing for work, and so like I have access to all those other tools, and I just, for some reason or another, I guess I have access to Creator Studio for Instagram. So it's sort of a side tool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into that.
Yeah,
I have had my work like be like, or at least when I see it, the quality is just kind of loses the details. And so you said that you do Facebook marketing for work. What's do you ever use like paid advertisement for your own artwork, or like do you mostly just do it for other companies and people that contract you?
I do it for other companies. Actually, I do it for the company I work for. And so, but yeah, I mean, the tool's the same. Whether you're doing it for a nonprofit, for a political campaign, or for your own art, the tools and the techniques are all the same. But no, I don't use it for my own artwork. I kind of feel like if I were to, the moment I advertise on Instagram, I feel like my numbers would just drop, and they would force me to pay for every single post. Like apparently it's happened with other people. I'm just like, enough of that. I'm like, okay, I'm not posting anything. I'm not promoting anything then, because
brother, you are probably right.
Yeah. I can't. Visual complains about it a lot. He's just like, I can't believe Instagram is throttling my account. Like,
no, it's true. I've paid for promotion in the past. Not like a lot. I usually do like $1 a day, and like it actually gets me like pretty decent results. Like I actually, I'll get new followers. I will like get more views and comments on my work. Like it seems like when I promote stuff that like I really want to be putting out there, that they really that it seems to like really connect with the right people, and especially like just with how much data these platforms have collected on all of us makes it really, really easy to target like exactly the kind of people that we're looking to interact with. So I think it's a really powerful tool. But I do think that like the platform also recognizes that you're like a really authentic, genuine creator, and that's why you get so much visibility, is because you're creating stuff that's like really for you, and you're not trying to turn a profit, and it keeps people like using the platform and watching your material, watching your incredible, stunning, astonishing animations over and over again. So they're gonna continue with that movement of your profile being put in front of new people, which I think that's something to take into consideration for people looking to grow their account more.
Yeah, absolutely. So the trick here is that now I don't have to pay to advertise to 50,000 people. It's sort of investment, right? Now I don't have to. I don't have to pay to reach that number of people. By the way, like in my regular job, I'm spending upwards of like $1,000, $2,000 per day on ad campaigns. Yeah. So I could see the results of like what happens when you pay for these ads, and so as an artist, I would encourage you to actually market yourself. I would actually encourage you to do that kind of stuff, because you're definitely going to see a return on your investment if you are smart with how you target, if you're smart with like you're creative, and you're very tapped into your audience and your target audiences. You're going to see a huge difference in your pocketbook. So I do encourage artists to do that. Obviously, I'm not just talking to you, Brett. I'm also talking to our audience out there who might be an artist.
No, I'm looking to my right because I literally wrote down on my whiteboard, like, what does your audience like? ? And then who are they specifically? And I have adventurous, mystical, and imaginative, because those are the people that I'm connecting with, and I need to remember that at all times.
Yes.
And I think it's totally game changing for, when we've really like narrowed down exactly who it is, like exactly that niche. My niche is people who hike, who also like visions.
Yes.
And being specific has really helped me just in my wording and how I describe things, in the stories that I tell in my artwork.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really love that you shared that.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm glad I can help a little bit.
Yeah. So I also want to ask, like, is your artwork? I might have asked something similar to this, but is your artwork based on like real visions and experiences that you've had, or is it kind of a mix of like software experimentation and also visions?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. My intention is to bring as much back from psychedelic experiences. I try to bring that back, or even the feeling of it. There's a few of my patterns early on where I was really trying to recapture the DMT realm. No, not early on. It's all the time. But there's certain patterns that I started with that I'm like, you know what? This is what I saw, and I'm trying to recreate it. This is the feeling of the movement of the patterns. This is the feeling of being within, like in the presence of something, or of patterns and colors interacting with you. And so a lot of times I am trying to recreate something that I experienced. And then there are other times where I'm just like curious on a very technical level. Like, what happens if I do this, right? I wish I could, let me see. There are some pieces, like my more recent pieces, where you see columns that are sort of undulating in wave forms, right?
Yeah.
Like little cylinders going up and down, those kind of pieces. That is a very intellectual exercise for me. I was just trying to really see, like, okay, what do I know about Blender? Like, how far can I take what I know about Blender and apply my own style to it, right? It does look psychedelic in nature, but for me, it was very much like, okay, I need to test myself. I'm going to test my knowledge of this program.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of those psychedelic experiences are really intangible and impossible to describe.
Right.
So my second to last question, because I know you got stuff going on, is have there been any like really profound psychedelic journeys or experiences that you've had that have been particularly outstanding in just the experience that you had that have like maybe shaped you in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a trip where it was a test trip, actually. By the way, I'm in Oakland, California. And anyone knows about Oakland, it's decriminalized here. So
yeah.
So
oh, that's awesome.
So I was testing. I was doing a test batch, and I went with 5 grams of Mazapatek. And I didn't think it was going to be anything crazy or whatever, but I was like, all right, let's give this a go. And so I got into, and it was planned, of course. I got into my space, and it came on so gently but strong, almost like a firm handshake.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I had the sort of the shivers and the waves and the visuals.
Medicine wobbles.
Yes. And at some point, I felt the divine presence, and the first thing that I saw was sort of like this large building, and I was inside of it. But I knew, and I think the divine being told me that I was in the Akashic Records or something.
Wow.
Or sort of like a visual representation of the Akashic Records, right? And then from there, I saw this giant book, almost like that illustration of Venus. It's like the large clamshell, right? So something like a giant book that was probably like 5 feet wide, 4 feet tall, just huge, a huge book.
Wow.
The being told me to open this book and pick any role that I want. If I could be anything, just go ahead, pick something out of this book, and just remember the role that you chose, right? Because you have to act it out for the rest of your life. This is the role you chose. Go ahead, pick it out and play it out, right? Like I get to be anything I want. And so I couldn't be more grateful. That's never happened to me. DMT, mushrooms, acid, it's never happened anywhere. I've had that kind of interaction. And so I chose a role, and that's who I am today.
Wow. That's amazing. That so what was that role as like a curator, a creator, a conjurer of these psychedelic realms? Was that like kind of or is it something like intangible and impossible to describe?
No, just being a creator. Being a creator and playing with it.
Oh, I love that. And I'm so grateful that you are creating the things that you are, because your visions that you share with the world and your tenacity to learn the software. Like, you've only been using Blender for a year? I studied Maya for a year, and I can't even come close to doing what you're doing. But this conversation has definitely inspired and influenced me to, level up and start learning Blender, because I know that the possibilities are really endless.
They are.
And that was what got me into animation in the first place, is just knowing that I can create this infinite world within the virtual realms.
Yes, indeed. Brett, thank you so much for having me on this show. I mean, it's really a blessing and it's an honor to be talking to folks like yourself and to be heard and to share this kind of moment, to share our stories together. So thank you so much.
Oh, Burt, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I have one last question. What is the overall overarching impact that you wish for your artwork to have on the world?
To awaken to the present moment. It's beautiful. It's infinite. And it's always in front of us. Right? We're always in it. We're always in it.
We're always there. We're always in the present moment. We'll never not be in the present moment. Oh, Burt, thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to see what you are creating next. And thank you for taking the time to enlighten all of us on what your practices are and telling us about your artwork. It's been a really inspiring and insightful conversation. For all the listeners, links to Burt Vera Cruz's website and Instagram and everything. What's the best place for folks to connect with you?
Go on Instagram, look at my bio. I have all my links up there, my YouTube, Foundation, and then hopefully Patreon, please. $1, please.
And all those links are going to be right down there in the description. So to all the viewers at home, thank you so much for watching. We Greatly appreciate you here on the 11th episode of the Visionary Art Podcast. Burt, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we close this out?
No, well, again, thank you so much for watching. It's a blessing to be part of your community.
That's right. Have a good night, good morning, good evening, everyone. I hope you create something awesome today. Take care.